What's up, guys? I'm Dwayne, and this is Blackboard Gaming, where we teach you about all these great board games that are out there, waiting to be played by you and yours.
I'm a simple man, don't want a complication.
Hey guys, I'm here to give you a heads up on a game that's coming out on Kickstarter in the next couple of days. And that game is called Cytress. Cytress is a game designed by Sean Lee and published by Tress Games. Let's go to the table for an overview of how this game is played. Cytress is a 2 to 5 player action selection engine building game set in a postmodern cyberpunk world where the players are rebels trying to escape to the floating island of Stratos. As part of setup, we will first randomly place one mini-map tile per player out into the middle of the table, and that's going to make up the mini-map. So this will be the setup for a 2-player game. This will be the setup for a 3-player game. Here's the setup for a 4-player game. And here's the setup for a 5-player game. But in this video, we're just setting up for a 2-player game. Before going forward, I have to point out that this is a prototype copy of the game. So the production of the final production could change. After we have created our mini-map, we will take these 4 faction mission boards and place them around the mini-map like I've done here based on the number of players. So this side is for 2 to 3 players, and on the other side will be 4 and 5 players. Next, we would divide the faction mission cards based on their color, give them a good shuffle, and then place them on the faction mission boards matching their color. And once we've done that, we will reveal 3 off the top of each deck and place them in their slots. So this is how the game looks after we've done that. And now we can move on to the next step of setup. In the area below the mini-map, you will place this underbelly district board. Slide it right there. Now, you see, you got your loan shark, merchant, and you got your bounty hunter. And these are worker placement spots that I'll explain in a little bit. But on the side where the loan shark is, you will take these deck cards and place them in those spots based on the type of loan. So you got credits, you got tech, you got weapons, and you got drugs. On the side where the bounty hunter is, you will place these bounty cards depending on who you're collecting the bounty on. So the corporocrats, privateers, hooligans, and the rovers. Then at the bottom of the board, you would take these skill ascension tiles and place them down here. So here you got abduct, got immobilize, infiltrate, loot, sabotage, and terminate. Next, you're going to construct the Stratos floating island, making sure that these boards are placed on the side based on the number of players, and then you're going to place that in the area above the mini-map on top of the Stratos board, which is down here. Then you're going to take these Stratolite cards, give them a good shuffle, place that down here, and then you're going to reveal 5. As you can see, I've already done. And then the discard pile will go over here. Next, you will take a number of these tubes right here based on the number of players. So there's 7 per player. So that'll be 14 in a 2-player game, and you're going to place them in the supply near the island. Each player is going to get a rebel board at random, and these are double-sided, so you can use whichever side you want. And then they're going to get a rebel standee, 3 ship standees, and 15 crew cubes matching that player's color. They're also going to get a supply board and get a supply token representing the 4 resources used in the game. And every player is going to start with 2 of each supply. So you're going to put those supply tokens on the 2 spot on that supply board. Then we're going to sort these skill cards based on the number of players as seen here. And then if this was a 3 or 4 or 5 player game, each person would get 2 skill cards which they'll keep secret from the other players. But we're setting up for a 2-player game, so each player is going to get 3 of these skill cards, keeping them secret. Then we're going to randomly choose a first player and play can begin. So, like I said, in Cytress, we are trying to get into the floating island of Stratos. And the game is going to last multiple rounds, and each round is split into 4 phases. First phase, we gain supplies. Then we spread influence as the second phase. Third phase, we travel with our ships. And then the last phase, we regroup and retire. So I'm going to go over each of these phases, but first I want to explain your rebel board. So in Cytress, the players are trying to develop their characters' life paths, and their life paths are represented by these 4 different colors, and the colors represent the 4 factions that reside in the underbelly of Cytress. So here you got your corporate privateers, the rover, and the hooligans. So let's go over the corporate life path. So in phase 1, you would gain supplies. So, and you gain the supplies that's on that life path. So right now, this character would gain 1 tech, like so. But let's say later on in the game, you know, I did a mission for the corporate cats and placed that there. So now when I gain supplies, I would gain 2 tech represented by each of those symbols and 1 weapon. And I would move my tokens on this board. Let's say later on in the game, this is what I have. So when I gain supplies in phase 1, I get 4 tech and 1 weapon. So that's how the corporate life path works. So the privateer life path goes off in phase 2. When I send my rebel token out to spread influence, and I'll tell you what that entails in a little bit. If anybody goes over to the hooligans give you weapons. If anybody go to the hooligans to get weapon, the privateers, they help me out, I get 1 weapon. You know. And so let's say later on, I did a mission for the privateers, and now I have that there. So in phase 2, if somebody goes over to the corporate crats to get credits, I get 2 credits. Now over here on the rovers, they help me out when I go visit the merchant in phase 3, and I'll tell you about that in a little bit. So, but I'll go over this when we do actually go into phase 3. But the hooligans, they have strength in numbers, so they help me get a discount. So right now, I don't have any discounts. But let's say later on, I did a mission for the hooligans. So now, if I go do a mission that requires me to spend tech, I get a 1 tech discount. Later on in the game, if I do another mission that requires me to spend tech, now I get 2 tech discounts. So, I've just told you, phase 1, you gain supplies. And you would monitor that on your supply tracker board. Now that we have done phase 1, collect supplies, then we would move on to phase 2, which is spread our influence. We would take our rebel standee and visit one of these 4 locations in these 4 districts. Like I said, you got your privateer district, hooligan, over there rovers, and you got your corporate crats up there. So I will take my rebel token, maybe I'll visit the privateer district, and then they're going to give me 5 tech, and I will move my tech token on my supply board 5 spaces. Now once you place a rebel standee there, no one else can go there. Now if you're playing a 4 or 5 player game, these districts will flip over and there are 2 spots that the players can send their rebel standee. But now that I've gone here, the other player can't go here. And that's why you want to try to build up your privateer life path. Because let's say the other player decides to go visit the hooligans and they get 5 weapons, my privateer life path gets me 1 weapon. And if I had this card on there, that would give me 2 weapons. Now, once we've done with phase 2, then we move on to phase 3. Phase 3 is the travel phase, and that's where we would send our ship standees out to one of the 9 worker placement spots out into the play area. So these first 4 here, 1 in each of these districts, is where we would send our ship out to complete missions. So let's say I decide on my turn, send this ship over to the privateer district to do a mission for them, and I'm gonna have to pay the cost. That's gonna cost me 2 tech, and I will reflect that on my supply board. And then I would take this mission and I would place this card next to the matching life path. So now during phase 1, when anybody collects supplies, and if they collect credits, I will get 2 credits. Then we will replace that. But then the last thing we would do is take one of our crew cubes and place it out into the area matching the color where we did the mission. So let's say I decide to place this here. And then we will move on to the next player's turn. I could send my ship standee to one of these 3 spots in the underbelly. So I could send my ship standee here, and then, which is visiting the loan shark, and take one of these devs if I really needed these supplies. So if I pick this up, I would immediately get 3 credits, but I would have to make sure I can pay this back before the end of the game, or I would lose 3 prestige. And you don't want to, that's what you're trying to get, have the most of at the end of the game. So once you, at the end, you can pay this at any time during the 4th phase, and you would just flip it over next to your board, and it does nothing else for you. You just show that you paid it off. It's not going to be worth negative points. I could send the ship standee to meet the merchant, and that would allow me to trade. So I could trade, you know, if you see the arrows, I could trade a tech for a weapon for credits, or credits for a tech. Or I could trade any one of those for some drugs. I can't do the opposite though. But the thing is, remember, if you're building up your rover life path, so right now it's at a rate. But let's say later on I had this on my life path, and I trade credits, I would get 2 tech, 1 for each of those symbols. If I had this one, for every credit I turn in, I will get 3 tech. Now the other thing, I can send my ship over here to meet the bounty hunters. So they have bounties on the different factions out into the districts. So if you remember, I did this sabotage mission against the corporocrats. So if I do 2 more missions against the corporocrats, I can send a ship here and collect this bounty. And that's going to give me 7 prestige at the end of the game, but it's also going to make it more expensive to do any missions against the corporocrats. So I had to keep that in mind. But that's 7 prestige points. The last 2 spots that I can send my ship is into one of these 2 spots here in order to spend supplies and build my tubes in order to get up to the floating island of Stratus, which is the whole goal of the game. So I can go here and meet the net prowler, or I can meet the stratolites. If I meet the net prowler, I will take my ship, send it there, and then I will spend a number of supplies based on how tall I want my cube. So if I want a height of 1, that's 5 supplies, height of 2, 11 supplies, a height of 3, that's 18 supplies. So let's say I go to do a height of 2, I would spend 11 supplies, reflect that on my supply board, and then I would take a cube that I have out onto the map here and place it on the level. So level 1, level 2, level 3. I'm gonna place my cube on level 2. And then I would take these two tubes rather, and place that in that same spot where my cube was. And then at the end of the game, I'm gonna score prestige for each of my cubes that is in Stratos. So on level 1, that will give me 5 prestige. Level 2, 10 prestige. Level 3, 15 prestige. And if my cube is the first one there, I'll get a bonus of some supplies. So here I will get 3 supplies. Now I could decide, instead of meeting the net prowler, I can go meet the Stratolites. Now the Stratolites have specific supplies that are required to build the tubes. So let's say I did this one. My cube was on a blue area, so I can build tubes on the blue area, and I can only spend those specific supplies. So I need like 11 weapons. So if I did that, I will be able to place my cube up there. But the bonus I get is I get to take a free action after everybody has sent out their ships. Everybody has 3 ships on a round to send out. But once everybody has sent out their ships, anybody who has ships that has visited the Stratolites gets to send their ship to another spot for a free action. You can't send it back to the Stratolites, but you can send it to any other spot on the board. Then in once everybody has sent out their ships and done their actions, then in phase 4, you regroup. And that can be done simultaneously. Everybody just grabs their ships and returns it to their play area, and you can pay your debts right then and there if you want to. We would then discard the rightmost Stratolite card, slide all these cards over, and reveal a new Stratolite card. And then the first player token will pass to the next player on the left, and we will begin the next round. Anytime during the game when I have completed 3 missions requiring the same skill type, I could take one of these skill tokens and add it to one of those skill cards that I got at the beginning of the game. So let's say I've done these 3 missions, each have sabotage. So I've done that, and I have this card here. I can take this right here and place it right there, and it makes a nice little picture. And then each of these that I have completed, I will gain 3 prestige points at the end of the game. So play will continue with the players going out to the different districts in the underbelly, completing missions, building out their life paths, and building up the tube sections to get to the floating city of Stratos until the last tube section that was available in the supply is used, at which time the players will finish out that current round. And if any tube sections can be built in that round, we will use tube sections that weren't available in the game based on the number of players. Once that round is over, the players will count up their prestige points. The players will score prestige points based on where their cubes are on the floating island of Stratos. So if they're on this first level, they will get 5 prestige points per cube. This level here, 10 prestige points. And this upper level here will get 15 prestige points. The players will score prestige points if they have the majority of their cubes surrounding each of the tubes out onto the map based on the height of that tube. So if you look at this tube right here, that's one high. Red has the majority of their cubes, so they would score 3 victory points. Here you have a tube of 2 high, and yellow has the majority, so yellow's going to score 5 prestige points. Over here, you got a height of 3. Red has the majority of that one, so they're going to score 7 prestige points. And you would do that scoring for each of these tubes out onto the map. And if there's a tie for majority, no one gets those prestige points. Then the players will add on their prestige points that they got on their bounties that they completed and their skill ascension. They would lose prestige points for any debts that they have unpaid. And then they would gain 1 prestige point per every 3 of each resource. So if you look here, this player has 9 tech, so that's 3 points. This player has 5 weapons, so it's rounded down. They would get 1 point for that, 1 point for the credit. And then they got 2 of the drugs, so they don't get any points, prestige points for that. Once each player has counted up their prestige points, whoever has the most points is the winner of Cytress. So these are my first impressions of this game. There's a lot of things that I really like about this game. First of all, the art style. I really like the art direction because it kind of reminds me of a old school cyberpunk anime, Ghost in the Shell, which is an anime that I really enjoyed. I like the aesthetics of this game. It can be a table hog, but I like that, you know, it has that floating island of Stratos, and it reminds me a lot of the Everdell tree in Everdell. But in this game, that component is actually utilized because you're placing your cubes up there to score prestige points. I like that you're building up your character, you know, building up your character's life path, and as the game goes along, everybody's character is becoming more asymmetrical. But the thing that I really find the most interesting is those mission cards. Because there's a lot of things you got to take in consideration when you're going out to do those missions. Like what type of mission? Because you're trying to get that skill ascension bonus. Or who are you performing the missions against? The factions. Because you want to go get that bounty and score those prestige points. Or where you're taking the mission from, because you have to be aware of where you're placing your cube out on that mini map, because there is that area control aspect. You know, the tubes are on the board, but whoever has the most cubes around those tubes will score prestige points. And what type of supplies you're going to be needing, you know, because like I said, everybody's becoming more asymmetric as the game progresses. And it's just a lot of things to take into consideration when you go out and do those mission cards. So if I had one dig at the game, I know this is the prototype copy. So, and it looks good for it being a prototype, but I hope that they, you know, when the supply tracker board, that each of the supplies has its own tracker. Because I didn't like the components, the tokens that you use to track your supplies being on top of each other. I hope they do something different with that in the final production. But overall, I really did enjoy this game. Cytress, I think the theme fits it well. I like I said, I love the art style, I love the aesthetics. And yeah, if this game is coming out on Kickstarter in the next couple of days, and I definitely would keep an eye on it because I think this is going to be a really, really fun strategic game. And that's how I feel about Cytress. I'm Dwayne. This is Blackboard Gaming, and I will see you next time.